Welcome everybody today again for the second interview at the first Worldwide Online Harp Congress. Today we have another fantastic guest, my wonderful friend from USA, who is now in New York, not city, but New York State, Sonia Inglefield, wonderful harpist who was also performing at the Focus on Youth at the same World Harp Congress in Vienna in 1987. And I would like very warm welcome for Sonia today. And I'm so thankful again that you have accepted also our interview and that you will share your experience with not only about the Congress, but about everything. And of course, I would love that you are talking also about your wonderful mother, Ruth Inglefield, who was also performing at the Congress, and we will have also the recording of her later on after our interview. So welcome, Sonia, and thank you very much for accepting.
Thank you, Jana, for having me. And this is such a wonderful event that you've organized. I have to say that I think we are all so grateful to you, because I know I was very much looking forward to the World Harp Congress in Wales this summer, and we were all so sad that it was canceled, at least postponed until next year. And to have something like this, even just to remember a former World Harp Congress, is just lovely. It's really very nice of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much. Please tell me something. Do you have memories really about this Congress? I know it's 33 years ago already, so we don't have memories.
Don't tell anyone how old we are. It's funny because, you know, I grew up in the world of the harp, much like you, having a mother who is a harpist. And she would take me to all of the meetings. We would go to the local meetings and to the American Harp Society conferences. And when the World Harp Congress started, she took me with her. Already, I think I was only 14 years old. We went to Maastricht. We were at the first World Harp Congress. And in fact, I went to the first 8 World Harp Congresses, every one of them for 8 times. And then I started to have a family and I couldn't leave. But the first 8 World Harp Congresses, I was with my mother, and I would follow her around. When I was very young, I would follow her around like a little duck. We would make fun. Her students and I would follow her as she went through the Congress and talked to the very most important harpists in the world. And we would stand behind her and look very meek and smile and try not to say anything. And I remember doing this for so many Congresses, and eventually, you know, I played at the Focus on Youth for several of the Congresses, and then I played in many of the new music concerts presented as later Congresses. I started to present new music in those concerts. And then eventually I even was going and bringing my students to attend the World Harp Congresses. So this was lovely. I had students of my own who have participated in the Focus on Youth. So it's really just been a wonderful thing. And I can't say enough to anyone who ever thinks, oh, maybe I'll go to the World Harp Congress. I have to say, yes, go. You must go. They are so wonderful to hear, especially the youth, the young people who are learning and who are just starting in their careers, and to hear the new music that's presented. Honestly, the young performers and the new pieces were always my favorite part of every Congress. To hear new music for our instrument presented by fabulous harpists was always just so inspiring.
You are also very much involved in the contemporary music, even in these days, and your mother was as well,
yes,
right?
She was a big champion of contemporary music. In fact, I think the recital that you're going to play was a performance of a new piece that had the Purgatory Poems by Dean Rausch. He is a professor of theory and composition at Wichita University in Kansas. And he wrote this piece that won the American Harp Society composition contest that year in 1987. I think that Nancy Allen gave the premiere, and then Mom performed it at the World Harp Congress. And she did many times. She worked with composers many times. She premiered new works. And it was really a passion of hers. I think you probably know, most people probably know, that she and Luann Neal wrote the first book about writing for the pedal harp, the first manual for composers about how to compose for our instrument. After working with so many composers, she realized that it was important to have some kind of guideline for them, and to also, at that point, much of the notation was very different in every piece. A composer would write a new piece and they would have a xylophonic, and they would make up a new symbol for the xylophonic, and then it wouldn't be the same for one composer, and you had to always learn a new symbol for each composer. So she and Luann spent many years actually compiling all the symbols and deciding which one should be the most standard. And they wrote this book, which I think is still, they did a second edition, and it's still in print, the writing for the pedal harp.
And where you can get them? Where you can get them?
I think they have it at Lion and Healy. It's published by Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny, when they wrote it, it came with an LP in the back, so you could hear the sounds of the different sound effects. This little plastic LP, the little ones that were very bending. So when we did the second edition, I actually had to record all the sounds again and put it on a CD. But even that is very passé now. Most people don't even have a CD player anymore. So
That's true.
it's very funny. But it's still a wonderful book and a wonderful manual. And then, of course, she went on to start the composition contest for the USA International Harp Competition. And this is a contest that is still going on today. She ran the first 6 cycles of it. In fact, she was still judging the final round when she became ill, and she was hurrying in the hospital. She wanted to make sure that the decision was made and that the decision was announced, and she was writing to all the jury members for their votes in the final round of the composition contest for the last USA IHC. And she was writing from her hospital bed saying, "Please get your votes in. We need to have this decided." And she didn't tell anyone that she was sick, and that was why. So it was really amazing. Then, of course, by the time the USA International Harp Competition happened and that piece was being performed in stage 3, the piece by Uno Vessier, a wonderful work for harp and electronics.
Yeah. He's here because it was wonderful, a really wonderful piece, and we have
it's a really beautiful piece. But by the time that happened, she had already died, and so I was running the Composers Forum in Bloomington last summer, and it was so lovely. Miss McDonald had decided to name that composition contest after my mother. And I am so grateful to her, and so wonderful a tribute that they would call it the Ruth Inglefield Composition Contest for the USA IHC. And so now next year in January, we will have the 7th Ruth Inglefield Composition Contest for the USA International Harp Competition. And so the website is already updated, but the application form will be available in January of 2021, and we will take new compositions. The deadline will be October 1st, and that's for the scores. And then on November 1st, we would need to have a recording, because part of the contest is that we ask the composers to find a harpist and work with a harpist and make a recording of their piece so we know it's playable. And then the jury members get an anonymous score and the anonymous recordings, and then the decision will be made on December 15th of next year. So it's wonderful that it continues. And one of the things that Mom really believed in was not just having one winner for this contest. So she made the composition forum, which we present 5 or 6 of the finalist pieces in a concert in Bloomington during the competition, so that people can hear more than just the one that won, but they hear also the finalists, because there are so many wonderful pieces being written for our instrument, and it's really so exciting to work with a composer and to make something new. So, and you were there, you heard them.
No, I must really only absolutely agree with everything what you said, because this competition is so unique. And I would also like to invite all the composers who are listening now with us to write the piece. I don't know only if there are any restrictions, if the piece needs to be certain length or...
I think it's 8 minutes. 6 to 8 minutes. So anywhere between 6 and 8 minutes. Solo harp. It has to be for solo harp. The harpist, basically solo harp, but if you want something to play with the harp, the harpist has to play it. So like the Crown of Ariadne, if you want to have lots of percussion equipment, it's fine, but the harpist has to be the one playing the percussion or the electronics or whatever. So
absolutely great. Okay, wonderful. And it should never be played before, right? It should.
Yes. Well, it's okay if it's been played or performed. Obviously, we ask for a recording, so some people send recordings from a performance. I think the requirement is that it should not be published, because that's one of the prizes, is that you get the piece published. So unpublished and not commercially recorded, so not available on a CD that people can buy or on a download that people can pay for. So if it's not commercially recorded and not actually published.
And is there any date limit? I mean, when it was supposed to be composed, so that it's not, I don't know, 10 years old piece, or it can...
No, I don't think so. I think people can write. I mean, we would like a new piece of new music, but these days new music spans a pretty long time. So yeah, no, there is no limit to when it was composed, as long as it's...
Big invitation to all the composers, either
to
choose what they already wrote or what they will have in mind to write. So it will be wonderful. And I know that I was also in the jury once for this competition, and it was very interesting. I must say, it was really unbelievably interesting to listen all the compositions, and not easy to choose, because there were so beautiful compositions to choose. Really, the best one, it's not easy.
Yeah, and it's an international competition, so we get scores from all over the world, and we've had over 100 scores. And it's really very interesting. And I love that you're inviting composers. I would like to invite the harpists as well, because you all know composers and you all work with them. So please go talk to your composers and ask them to write a piece. And if you are willing to work with someone to write an even better piece or help them edit, sometimes they want to do something and they don't know quite how. And if they work with you, you can help them make it an even better piece. So please, harpists as well as composers.
Wonderful, perfect. And we can also maybe write afterwards, we can write the link where they can find all the information about it into the comments.
Yes, it's all on the USA IHC website. If you just go straight there, you can usaihc.org, and then you can find the composition contest. Oh, but this reminds me, I told you I was looking in my house for things from Vienna. And I found the old program. I couldn't believe I had it in a closet, and stuffed inside my old program from Vienna. Look what I found. I have to show you this. Whoa, where is it?
Where is it? Oh, and you cannot read it. USA competition.
This is the first announcement for the USA harp competition.
Amazing.
And this is the one that you went to and you won, yes?
I won the second one.
Oh, the second one. Oh, I thought it was this one. I was so excited because I was like, "Oh, look, Jana, I found it." But this was the first. This was the first time that they had it, and they announced it in Vienna. I didn't realize that. So I have the announcement for the first ever USA International Harp Competition.
You bring these all memories. I feel like that time of around the 90s, it was so rich time for the harp. It happened so many new events, new possibilities for the harp. These events like the congresses, the competitions, and so on. Because up to that time, everything was limited, right?
It was. I remember when Israel was the only international harp competition, and now there are so many, and it's wonderful. It's so exciting, and it's so wonderful. I still before we went live today, we were talking, and I said, looking back at the World Harp Congresses, it's amazing to me. All of the focus on youth concerts. If you look at the names of the people who were playing as youth, as teenagers, these people are now the top harpists in the world. And it's just incredible that those people who we were on the concerts with are now, we are all the next generation. And it's very exciting. Just so many wonderful names on those concerts. And this is something that I think every student should apply for the focus on youth at any World Harp Congress. And when you go, you need to talk to all the other people on that concert, because they will be your colleagues. And they will be the next generation, and you will be the grand harpists going forward. And it's just so exciting.
It's going from one generation to another one. And that, again, we come to the point that, as you mentioned, that you came from the family of harpists. Was it for you like natural to start the harp, or your mom wanted you to play the harp?
Well, I was 3. I started on the Irish harp, and I was 3 years old, and my mother says that I wanted to. But, you know, I was 3. I'm not sure that it was really my idea. And this is one thing that she was always very good at, making me believe that something was my idea. How was it for you? Did your mother convince you, or?
Nobody from my family remembers how I started. Neither me, and neither, like, really, absolutely. It has come so naturally, probably, that I was only watching. No way. My mom, when I asked when I started, she said, "I have no idea." Neither my father and neither me. Absolutely, and I even don't know how I started. And my mother also did not remember that she would ever put me the hands on the harp.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, strange. So.
Well, you know, my mother, besides contemporary music, one of her passions was also pedagogy, and especially teaching young children. And I think that was because of me. I think she had the Irish harp in the house, and she wanted to teach me, but I couldn't even read words, let alone read music. So she was teaching by rote, and she wrote many pieces for me that were based on patterns and that could fit a very small hand. And eventually she published those, and they're called Songs for Sonia and Solos for Sonia. And those are on Lion and Healy. They're published by Lion and Healy now. And they're just a wonderful set of beginning. I still teach all my beginning students, whether they're small children or adults. I teach them with these pieces because they are good for they fit the hand and they follow the patterns. But I remember when she was writing those and I was beginning to play on the small harp, I think she even presented at one of the American Harp Society conferences about how it is possible to teach young children to play the harp. And she brought me as a guinea pig. And and she gave me a lesson in front of the conference and showed them that, look, you can teach even very small children. So that was, I think part of why she would take me to the conferences was so she could show people that it's okay for even young children. Because, you know, she didn't start to play the harp until she was, I think, 12 or so. She played a few other instruments first, and then she fell in love with the harp, and she lived in New Jersey, but she went to New York City and studied with Mr. Grandjani. And she had lessons with Mr. Grandjani, and then eventually went on to the Paris Conservatoire and got the Premier Prix with Pierre Jamet. And she stayed in Europe for 10 years, and then came back to the States for a PhD in musicology. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Have you had chance to talk about these teachers with your mom ever? How did she like them, and what was the difference between the Marcel Grandjani
and Pierre Jamet? We didn't really talk about the difference between them. I know some lovely stories about her time with Grandjani. I know that he picked out her gold Linen Healy 23 for her. I know that she won, after only playing for a few years, I think only playing for 2 or 3 years, she won the concerto competition for the New York Philharmonic. She was very young, I think playing Demas or something. And the story that she told was that she went to New York City for her harp lesson with Mr. Grandjani, and he said, "Oh, today we will have our lesson in a different building. You come and meet me in this other building, and you will play for me there." And she said, "Oh, okay," because that happens sometimes. He would just have the lessons in a different place. So she went and had her lesson in the different building. And when she walked in the room, there were some other people at the table that he was talking to. And he said, "Oh, you just go ahead and play the Demas." And so she played the Demas, and she just played through it one time. And then he said, "Okay, thank you." And she left. And she thought that was a very strange lesson. And then like a week later or a few days later, he said, "Well, congratulations, you won the competition." He didn't even tell her she was competing. I thought that was a lovely story.
That's great.
I know.
That's how the competition should be like, right?
Right. Then you're not nervous. You're just giving your lesson in front of some other people. I thought that was wonderful. But and then she took me for a couple of summers. I went to Gargilles in France, and I studied with Jamet too. He was still alive, and she took me for some of the summers of study with some of her students also in Gargilles, France, and I got to study with Pierre Jamet. And it was lovely. You would come for your 10 o'clock in the morning lesson in his parlor, and we would all sit in a group, and he would offer you a petit whiskey. I think I was 15.
At 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, and he would be smoking his cigars. But it was wonderful. And, you know, these experiences of studying in Europe and going to the World Harp Congresses and meeting harpists from around the world, it changes your life. I studied in Europe for 2 years. I studied when I was 16. I spent a year in Italy, and I studied with Gertrude Chiocchetti in Bolzano. And then I came back and did my bachelor's degree with Mom. And then because of the World Harp Congress, I met Yanni von Roncha, who you are also going to talk to. And I spent a year in Romania on a Fulbright grant. And I studied with him in Romania. And because I had heard his students and I had heard him play, and we had met at World Harp Congresses, and I respected him very much. I thought, this is someone I would like to study with. So I had a Fulbright to Romania, and it happened to be in 1989, and it was the revolution.
My God. Oh my God.
So I went, and it was still communist country. And when I came back, they had a revolution. In fact, we were the U.S. embassy evacuated us during the revolution. We were evacuated from the country, and then we came back in January, and there was an earthquake that year too. It was a crazy year to be studying harp in Bucharest. But yeah.
When you mentioned Ivan, don't you? He's with us today, so we greet him very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your greets.
Yes.
Also, many greetings to Chantal, who is there with us, and also with many people who are writing. So thank you very much to be here.
Yes, so, absolutely.
Sonia, tell me also, you had now the same situation as we all have, right? We are all locked down. You are teaching. Tell me something about how do you solve these things now? We are teaching, performing, how the situation looks like.
Yeah, it's the same as with everyone, you know, we're all using the online teaching now. For me, the semester is almost over. I think this coming week is our last set of classes. I was nothing like you. You travel every week all over the place, and you teach in so many different places. But when my mother became ill, they asked me at Peabody to cover her students there. And so at first I was commuting from Fredonia, New York to Baltimore to be with my mother in the hospital and to also teach her students. And this was a very difficult time. It happened very suddenly. And I had to take her students. She just finished the semester in December, and in January she was in the hospital, and I had to start teaching for her and be with her. And then she died at the end of February. And to be teaching her students at Peabody, and who had been in classes with her the previous semester, it was the most difficult thing. It was so hard on them because those students were all so in love with her, and she didn't show them that she was sick, and it was so surprising for them, and it was such a difficult time for all of us, that transition. And then I stayed at Peabody also this year, so now I've been there for a year and a half. Well, they were searching for the new teacher, which is going to be June Han. Yay, June Han. But to be traveling and teaching at Peabody and also at the State University of New York in Fredonia has been a challenge. And I know you understand this, because how many schools are you teaching?
3.
It's a challenge to go in all these places. So that was difficult already, just the travel every week. But then suddenly from one week to the next to now not travel and be teaching online, it was quite the transition. And unfortunately, I think a lot of schools canceled recitals and they canceled juries, and they just said, oh, well, you don't have to give a recital, you can graduate anyway. And I'm sad about that, because I don't mind teaching the students online, and I don't mind trying to help them with whatever pieces they're working on. But I was so looking forward to their recitals, and I was really, really excited to have them perform and to have them prepare an entire recital and work on some amazing music and perform it for an audience live. And some of them are still doing online recitals. I'm sure some of your students are doing this too, but for it not to be even required by the school is a little surprising. What did your schools do?
We just at the moment we are waiting for the results, because we are just now, we have no idea if the exams will happen now at the end of the year, or we will do it, postpone it for September, because as I can't now travel, so it depends. If I will need to do it online, then it will not make any sense. It will not make any sense. So we have no idea how to solve this situation, and we are waiting for some news, new ideas and new news from the governments at the middle of May. So.
Right. Wow. Well, I know, like at Fredonia here at the college here, they decided to keep juries, and I don't know if you've had your students do this. I realized pretty early that the sound quality on the computer was not good when it's live. And so I asked them to record a video and send it to me the day before their lessons. So when they send me their lesson the day before, I can hear very well, and I have a lot more to say than if we're just live on Zoom. So here at the college, they said that the students should record their juries and post it for the teachers to listen, a video recording. And I think that's a good solution, you know.
I'm thinking about it as well, because it's true that if they do the live video, it's the same like when they play live concert. So it's, I mean, we can see that it's not cut, that it's really live.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so we will see, we will find certainly some solution, but it's not easy for anybody, because the students also have no security, because they don't know when the exams are going to be, what if they should prepare it really now very quickly for the exams, or if they should wait until September. It's really not easy.
Right.
And also most of them, they have also concertos with the piano, so they have to arrange the rehearsals, but they don't know if they should make the rehearsals or not. Not easy. Real time is not really as we are used to it, but still we are healthy. That's the main thing, right?
Yeah, that's the most important thing, obviously. Yeah. But it's sad, because, you know, even if they make a recording, it's not the same if you don't have an audience. So but these students are strong. They are amazing, honestly, the things that they are going through right now, and they still are motivated, and they're still practicing, and we don't even know what their home situations are like. I can't imagine having to, as a young adult, getting out of my parents' house and going to college and having a life, and then suddenly you have to be back with your parents again. It's not always good for everyone.
Sometimes it can be for the teenager is a little bit difficult. That's
I mean, some people it's okay, but you know, for some people it might be a challenge to be at home. But it's wonderful what they're doing, and the practicing that they're getting done, and that they still are motivated. I think that's wonderful.
That's true. And Sonia, have you had some performances which had to be cancelled during this time, or they are?
Oh yes, indeed. In fact, I was just when they started to close things, I was about 2 weeks away from a Mozart flute and harp concerto. So, oh well. So yeah, there have been some things that have been canceled, but it's more important to be healthy, obviously, and to not spread this virus. It's incredible. And I know that I'm going to watch when you speak with Mario, and I don't know if he's watching now, but I'm going to say hello to Mario, because he lives only 5 minutes away from me, and I miss him. And we had to cancel also. In Fredonia, we have a small day of the harp. We call it a Fredonia Harp Day, and we had to cancel that this year too. And Mario, I took over teaching here when Mario retired, but we were having Harp Day together, and I miss him. I miss that we didn't get to do that this year.
That's really
And,
strange. You are so close by and you cannot meet
I
him.
know, and I can't even see him.
Yeah.
Oh, makes me sad. But
Sonia, when we were talking about your mother, about your really such a passion for the contemporary music, during these days when you are at home, are you preparing some new or like finding new music which your mom has not even played before? And
I haven't had time yet because of all the teaching online, but I'm looking forward after next week. When the teaching is finished, then I will certainly have time. Plus, you know, my daughters are both at home too, and I have to make sure that they practice every day. They have practicing to do, and they both play piano.
Yeah.
And the older one also plays cello, and the younger one plays a little bit of harp. Not really. She doesn't take it very seriously, but actually I didn't take it very seriously until I was in high school either. I even though I started when I was 3, I didn't really practice until I was in high school. So you know, I have to keep track of them a lot. And I'm afraid my older daughter, she's a junior in high school, and this is a really hard year. Junior in high school is a difficult year. You have a lot of very important classes to take and tests to take. You have to take the SAT, and these are all canceled now. And we need to look at how to apply for college for her. Next year is her senior year. We should be applying to colleges, but we can't visit any colleges because they're all closed. And
of course, yeah, that's
so
true.
these are all things that it will be different now in the future, how you make these decisions and how you apply to colleges and where you apply and things like this. I think it's all changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also when I see the harp behind you, is it the harp which you play or which your mom plays?
This is my harp. This is my harp that she got for me when I was 16. I've had it for a very long time. It's a Venus, so you can't see the roses on top.
Right.
It's a Venus. But actually one of the things that I have to do eventually, you know, they closed Peabody so quickly that I haven't been able to pack up her office. So I have I think she has 2 harps there that I need to go and bring them back. I have her Lion and Healy that Granjani picked out is still at Peabody, locked in her office, and I'm not allowed to go. They closed Peabody and it's very locked up, and I'm not allowed to go in. So, and plus it's a 7-hour drive, so I'm not going to do it until I know I'm allowed to travel and I'm allowed to get in. But yeah, there's I'll need to definitely bring that instrument home at some point.
Absolutely. When we were talking about your mom, you were grown up at the harp family, so it was very easy. But how did your mom come to play the harp?
She was, I think she was drawn to the harp from a concert. She lived in New Jersey, just a train away from New York City. And so I think her family were very involved in going to concerts, and she heard an orchestra concert with a harp and fell in love and insisted to her parents, even though I think she started on I want to say violin and French horn. I think she had perfect pitch and just an incredible memory and an incredible ear. And I think when she heard the harp, she said to her parents, "This is it." And oh, that's another wonderful story. When she went to college to study the harp, my grandmother missed hearing the harp in her house. And she really enjoyed having the harp in her house. And so she insisted that my mother's little sister started to take lessons also. And so my Aunt Chris started lessons with Mr. Granjani after there wasn't harp in the house anymore. And my Aunt Chris had to learn to play the harp also with Mr. Granjani. But then my Aunt Chris went to college and there was no harp left in the house, and my grandmother missed the harp. So my grandmother went to Mr. Grandjani and said, Mr. Grandjani, am I too old? Would you take me as a student? And she studied with him.
Unbelievable.
He studied too, and she did okay. She learned the Handel concerto. I mean, she had a small, like a 17 or something in her house, and she practiced.
Amazing. That's fantastic story as well. That's super, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And Sonia, before we started to be online, you were saying your emotional thing when you listened to the video which I sent you before.
Oh. You sent me Mom's performance in Vienna, and the first thing when I opened it up, it's been a year and a half since she died, and I thought, oh, I would love to see Mom play, and I clicked on it, and the first thing, she's talking and she's telling people to read the poetry for the piece that she's about to play, and I wasn't expecting to hear her voice. And I haven't heard her voice in a year and a half, and I cried. As soon as I heard her voice, I just had tears running down my face, and I had to turn it off. Actually, I turned it off, and I couldn't listen. I had to wait until the next day, and then I was able to get through it, and I was so happy that you sent me that. She plays so beautifully. And this performance was so nuanced and so musical and so just gorgeous. And I realized that even now I still can learn from my mother. She never taught me everything that she knew. She was such an amazing musician, and I always knew that I had more to learn from her. And just watching that video, I can learn. It's really incredible. And I thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I saw the video of your mother playing in the exhibits. Oh, that was so lovely. I remember her so well. And that was really nice, playing the Moldau.
It was very unique for me to find it, because honestly, this is the only recording I have of her.
No.
Yeah, because I thought like I have actually no recording of her to play. And then I was going through these videos and I found this. I said, like, this is absolutely treasure. Really.
Oh, you must have cried when you found it too.
I was really very, very touched by that. Yeah, I was really very touched. Yeah. So it's something very special for both of us, because we both had to go through very difficult time last year. We both lost our beloved moms, and yeah, so we know how painful it is. So. And I
think it's the worst thing to lose your mother, or any parent. It's really just the worst thing. And it will happen someday, but then when it does, there's no way to prepare. And I think you and I were both obviously, being harpists, and our mother harpists, I think we were even particularly close to our mothers. So yes, and it was horrible. And I felt so sorry when I learned that your mother also passed. Oh, it was a rough year.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Sonia. Really, that we have to keep strong. We have to go on and keep our mother's work, which they're left for the other generations. And I don't want to finish so emotional, but
I'm sorry.
No,
I shouldn't have.
It will be emotional always. But and we all know, and I'm so sorry that even my tears comes out. But yeah, I'm so happy that we could have time to be together today and to spend a little share of your life of your mother. And that I'm very happy that you were also mentioning about the contemporary competitions, which it's very important for the composers. So only if you can just once more mention it, so for the people who came later, so that they should not forget to apply.
Yes, the 7th Ruth Inglefield Composition Contest for the USA International Harp Competition. And The application form will be available in January, next January of 2021. And the the scores will be due October 1st of next year. So a year from this, October 1st. And the information is already available on usaihc.org. .org, and it's for a solo piece for harp that's 6 to 8 minutes long.
Perfect. I think that we will also write the link